What's up, everybody? I'm John Middlekauff. You know what I need you to do. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. We got content for days reacting to every NFL game all the time, every single day. Subscribe, like the videos. Let's go. What is going on, everybody? The schedule has been released. I was thinking about it today. I was really excited, and then I started thinking as every game slowly got leaked. I mean, a week 6 game here, a Christmas game here. It's like what are we doing? But I wasn't gonna go the other way and be a Debbie Downer. This is a cool day. It gets really confusing at 5 o'clock, especially on Twitter. Every team posts, but they don't just post the schedule. They do like 2 to 5 minute clips. I saw the Broncos had a dude like riding a cow. I was like, I can you just give me the schedule? And then I realized just take a deep breath, just take it all in. Let's talk about some big picture things because I had some takeaways before we even learned on the schedule. I think what I'll do right now is, I mean, something pretty fascinating with the Chiefs. Obviously, the one-off games have gone to these streamers, which is, I mean, there's a game on YouTube, not YouTube TV, YouTube, which I'm pro YouTube. This is on YouTube, but that's pretty crazy. Now we've known this was coming. Obviously, Netflix, Amazon, the Black Fridays. Now Amazon's been in the mix for a little bit with the Thursday night games, but we've got a lot going on. Maybe do a little opening week. We'll just fly through the games week one, and then hit on a couple other things that I noticed because Caleb and JJ, the the NFC North, their schedules are hard. I mean, they play the AFC North, they play the NFC East. We'll just kind of go through those two guys because I'm giving the Lions the benefit of the doubt. I'm just assuming they're going to be a good team moving forward until they prove otherwise. And the Packers, I mean, it feels like once every like 8 years aren't good. So I'm assuming they're going to be good. We got two quarterbacks, a lot of pressure that are young. We'll talk about them. The Eagles, kind of interesting little opening stretch. The Niners, I mean, not much excuse. Their schedule's pretty freaking easy. And maybe we'll hit on a couple other ones. God, there's a lot going on. I was thinking, should we go through every week, every single game, and give like a 10-second, just the first thing that comes to my mind? I'd be like, that'd just take too long. So let's talk a little football. But before we do, listen, one of the cool parts, I don't really get to go to games anymore. I haven't been to a game in a while because of this little job we got going and need to be around on Sunday to record. But I know a lot of you guys look forward for this schedule release, even though we already know who is playing everybody. We just don't know the dates. We don't necessarily know the times, the time of year. If you want to travel to an away game, maybe if your team's playing at Vegas or playing in a city that you would like to visit and go to, it's easy to kind of build and look ahead. Listen, Game Time, they got you covered. Best ticketing app in America. You just search by the venue, you just search by the price point, where you want to sit. It gives you the angle, obviously, concerts, where the stage is. In football, like where you're sitting relative to the 50-yard line, what level, the first level, the middle bowl, the top. It doesn't get any easier to use. So if you want to go to one of these football games this fall, no excuses now. We know when everyone is playing. Maybe late in the year with the flex schedule. So if you're gonna lock it in, probably do a non-flex game, but they got you covered. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code JOHN for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code JOHN for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. I actually really want to go to the to Allegiant Stadium in Vegas. I've been to Vegas so many times in the last 3 or 4 years, and every time I see it, it just looks cool on the outside, and obviously on the inside, it by all accounts, anyone listening that has been there, I actually played golf today with a guy who has gone to a game there. He's a Bears fan. I know a lot of people have been games, and they just say the place is badass. So if you ever want to make a little weekend trip out of Vegas, that stadium is pretty freaking cool. And I mean, host other events as well. But I do. Speaking of, the Raiders in the AFC West, if I would have told you even a decade ago when Andy Reid and Alex Smith were consistently a 10-11 win team and going to the playoffs, that they would land this quarterback and he would turn them in to the number one brand in football, Like, that is so insane. And I think the power of the NFL, and we talk a lot about this, like, as I'm recording this right now, the Knicks are playing. And whether I'm pretty sure they're going to win tonight, but even if they don't win tonight, I'm sure they'll win game six with Tatum out. They are just a massive brand. They're one of the biggest brands, despite losing a lot, the moment they get good, because of their market and because of the quantity of the fan base. We use the Yankees a lot. Like, it was a really big deal last year in the World Series. I don't know, to have the Yankees and the Dodgers. Why? Historic brands. The Yankees have been winning since like Babe Ruth in the early 20s. The Dodgers are also been winning well before I was alive, and they just have a large quantity of fans. So it is way more powerful to have those two teams in the World Series than other teams without the amount of fans. It's why last year's World Series did huge numbers. And basketball and baseball are so dependent on the big boy brands. It's like if the Lakers played the Knicks, be no different than the Dodgers and the Yankees. It would be incredible. Do historic numbers. The NFL has found a way. I mean, think about this. Two of the biggest brands in the NFL are in Green Bay, Wisconsin, and Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. It's because those two franchises, I mean, the Packers are also a historic brand and haven't, really lost for 30 plus years. And the Steelers have been winning since the 70s. I don't mean Super Bowls, but just winning. So you accumulate a lot of fans by a bandwagon. The Chiefs, over the course of like 6 or 7 years of starting Patrick Mahomes, have turned into a team. 5 of the first 8 weeks, they are on primetime. Week 1, Brazil, YouTube, standalone games. Week 3, at Giants, Sunday Night Football. Week 5, at Jacksonville, Monday Night Football. Week 6, Detroit, Sunday Night Football. Week 8, Washington, Monday Night Football. Now, the Giants, in theory, if they're good, are a big-time. They've been terrible for over a decade. So you just put the Chiefs on Sunday night and Monday night against the Giants and the Jags, like, we're good. Because no matter what, even if those teams suck, we got Mahomes. And it's just crazy how it's become like this. Because in a short period of time, they have become, I think a lot of people get tired of like, why are we going to talk about the Cowboys? Why do we got to talk about the Cowboys? Because this is all a numbers game. And there's a reason historically, like, they just got more fans. Now it gets to the point like last year, if you're going to suck like that, and if you're not good again, we got to be able to talk about other teams. And the Chiefs are like, hey, we will enter the chat. And they have. And it's pretty clear that, and 5 of the first 8 weeks, they also play on Thanksgiving and Christmas. So it tells you everything you need to know. They wet the beak of NBC and ESPN and even YouTube. They also take care of Netflix and Amazon. It truly is incredible how fast they have become just a behemoth of a cash cow for the league. You put them on television. Listen, Andy's been winning for almost 30 years now. But to me, their secret sauce, and you could also call it a combination of like Mahomes, the biggest star in the NFL. He's the biggest name in the NFL. And I don't think you can dispute, even if it annoys people when they show him on, Travis dating her is kind of a big deal. I do think that plays a part into the power of this brand, because I don't exactly know where Kansas City falls on the size of some of these markets. Like the LA Rams, now granted, they've moved around a little bit, but they've been good now since Sean McVay got there. They don't get treated like this. So it really is crazy how big Mahomes and Taylor Swift / Kelsey have turned this franchise into. The biggest names, the brightest stage. Championship level swings are lighting up Charlotte this week, and DraftKings Sportsbook has you covered for every thrill and moment. From the first tee shot to the Sunday's final putt, experience every shot like never before. You can live bet, you can play props, and so much more. New to golf betting? Don't worry, I got you covered. You're in good company with DraftKings Sportsbook. Kick things off with a simple pick, like choosing who you think will win. Here's the thing. Lines and odds are subject to change. But I love Bryson DeChambeau to win this tournament. Plus 950. Other good bets that I like. Xander Schauffele to top 10. Plus 180. Justin Thomas to top 10. Plus 175. And if you want a little bit of a flyer, a little bit of a long shot, I can give you Gary Woodland to top 20 at plus 450. And here's the big win for new users. Bet just $5 and score 200 in bonus bets instantly. The other thing I find pretty fascinating is, and we've been talking about this for a while, and listen, I've benefited from this. My life has directly benefited because of technology. And it changed my life because I can do a podcast from a home office that goes on this phone that you guys, make sure nothing crazy is up there, that you guys can listen to. And obviously, YouTube has been incredible for the podcast business again. But forever in the NFL, like, you took care of your main partners. And in the NFL, they make their money from NBC, CBS, ABC, and Fox. That is like, listen, you'd be like, well, the NFL doesn't care what anyone thinks. True, except pissing those people off. Why? Because they write enormous checks. Well, over the course, I would say, of the last decade, Amazon clearly got into the streaming world. They now have Thursday Night Football. Netflix had been around. They dabbled in the live events. And then a couple years ago, like, yeah, we're interested in football. Like, oh, shit. The power of YouTube. Now the NFL gives Netflix these two Christmas Day games. They're good games. I mean, Dallas might not be any good, but they get Dallas at Washington, which will crush. Detroit at Minnesota. I mean, that game last year was for the #1 overall seed in the NFC. And Denver at Kansas City. The NFL's current biggest brand against a playoff team in Denver, which also, if they're good, is a big deal. So they are taking care of Netflix and Amazon at a pretty high level. And if I'm Fox and I'm CBS and I'm NBC, clearly the way these wins have changed over the course of the last 5, 6 years, we all know the cable bundle is not going to exist. And it's why I did defend the NFL a couple years ago for putting, I think it was Chiefs, Dolphins on Peacock. It's like, listen, I don't love having to give $20 for one game of Peacock, and I technically already owned because they had some golf events. But would I love this just to be on regular NBC? Sure. But I also don't live under a rock and understand that, like, NBC, the network, is not going to exist. And if the NFL, like the older, the patriarchs of the family, the Jerry Joneses, the Al Davises, the whatever, the oldest Rooney, like the Spanos' dad, the people that got in, and when the business started taking off, it was all the networks. Well, now it's like, hey, Amazon, Google, and Netflix, they got way more money than these people. Oh, yeah, they also have a way bigger reach. So one thing that is clearly inevitable, I mean, Amazon, they got in on the Thursday night game. They got a Black Friday game this year, which is obviously big for them. I think they had that last year as well. They have the Amazon night game on Christmas. To me, the YouTube thing, week 1 Chiefs Chargers, is fascinating. Like, I mean, we all know, most of you, I'm sure. Someone asked me the other day, like, how much time do you spend on Twitter? And I'm like, honestly, if I'm not sitting at my desk, I used to spend, I would say 10, 8, 7 years ago, a lot. And I think over the last several years, the majority of time, even if I'm sitting at my desk and definitely on my phone, the first app I go to is either Instagram or YouTube. And the NFL knows this, and they look like, how much money does Google have? An unlimited amount? Yeah, we're going to start doing business with you. So if I was, and listen, Fox changed my life. When I was a kid, they got, if you're my age, 40, a little younger and definitely older, you remember when Fox got into the NFL. And it was, I think, 93 or 94. They signed John Madden. They come in right as the 49ers and the Cowboys. I mean, the Cowboys are starting this little 5-year dynasty. The 49ers had been winning for 15 years. Favre gets traded to Green Bay. It was the perfect storm. And it was an incredible move for Fox, for the NFL. It worked out perfectly. And they have been very loyal to them forever. And now look at Fox. They try really hard. They get Tom Brady. I saw Tom Brady's schedule, obviously a bunch of Cowboy games, the occasional like 49er or Eagle game, but it's the Cowboys, win or lose. They're, the NFC, they always lean with the Cowboys. But that was a really, really big deal. And I think these people, and obviously these networks know, but they got to be a little nervous now. Like, Netflix isn't just dipping their toe in the water. And here's the other thing the league has done. They have given these, like, if you put a game on Netflix, like just a random game on Sunday afternoon, and there were multiple other games, it would not be as powerful. Amazon was smart getting the primetime package, whatever, several years ago on Thursday night. You don't have to compete against anybody. And the NFL was smart, like, that's what we want you to have. Because if you told me that, like, oh, the Giants are playing the Jags, one of the 10 a.m. games on Amazon, you know what I would do and you would do more than likely, especially if we didn't have money on the game or you didn't have a player on the fantasy team, you might not put it on one of your televisions. Yet they give all these streaming platforms, Netflix, Amazon, and this YouTube, you're not competing against anybody else. So even depending on your setup at home, it's not a pain in the ass at all because it's the only game on. So as we've seen, the only game on television, especially if it's the Cowboys or the Lions versus Minnesota or the Chiefs versus Harbaugh, we know these games are going to do great because they're big time games with big time people, either coaches or star players, and they're going to crush. So you're not only wetting their beak, you're making them realize, like, God, this is a powerful fucking product. Because whenever this new negotiation happens, which I think has an opportunity in 2029, I just wonder how big of a player Fox and NBC and CBS are going to be able to compete against this. Because the more and more that these people get a taste of it, it's like, God, did you see the numbers that Patrick Mahomes and Jim Harbaugh did on YouTube? I'm speaking as if I was like a Google executive. It's like, maybe we should ask for a couple more games. YouTube TV is already in bed because they have the DirecTV, it's not DirecTV, but what DirecTV used to have, the NFL package. I'm sure, like many of you, watch it every week. It's incredible. So to me, I'm fascinated by these streaming platforms that, Amazon clearly is not going away, and Netflix getting more and more involved. And I think Florio wrote about this. They're just stealing games away that would have, like, where do you think Detroit and Minnesota would have been if the Christmas games had never existed and the league's like, listen, well, Adam Silver, you guys can handle Christmas. Throw LeBron, Steph, Ant, and Jokic on there, and you guys just have that day. We'll just chill, right? Where would Detroit and Minnesota have gone? That would have been potentially like a Tom Brady game, on that Sunday. That would have been the primetime Fox game. Where do you think Denver at Kansas City would have been? Probably the primetime CBS game with Jim Nantz and Tony Romo. So they're just yanking these games and handing them to Bezos and Netflix. So fascinating stuff there. The other thing I did want to go over, just because, like, I'm not going to go too far down because we never know what can happen week to week. I just wanted to go over the games week one. We obviously talked about earlier this week, Cowboys and Eagles. That's an easy one. That's what you call a BP fastball. I think technically, I mean, the league would never do this, but if they hadn't had the rule or, had gone with the consistency that the team that won the Super Bowl kicked off opening weekend, I think you could put like Jags Titans, and we would be like absolute drug addicts with someone putting a little, a crack on like a string going, and we would chase it. I don't think the game would necessarily matter. But when you go like last year, Chiefs, Ravens, this year, Cowboys, Eagles, I mean, they're not coming out slow. I do think the Friday game is a really big deal to the league. Last year they did Eagles, Packers. This year they're doing Chargers, Chiefs. Now, granted, that game in Brazil, which I think's a little weird, don't totally get it. And like, what's the point of going to Brazil? I'm sure Raj and people in the league office would have they would have talking points to try to validate the strategy of the substance behind like this X, Y, and Z. This is why we do this. But regardless, it doesn't feel like that Brazil game Friday night is going to go away. And I would imagine YouTube, that thing's going to crush. Let's just fly around the rest of the games on Sunday. So we start with a little Tampa at the Falcons. I mean, I think Atlanta's just kind of a dog shit franchise, like Tampa in that game. This is a pretty good one thing, though. Week one games, things get weird, right? I think you never underestimate, overestimate. You just go into week one knowing like this is going to be a hard game. You don't know who sucks yet. Every team in the league, every player in the league is amped up. The game finally matters after training camp. No one really plays in preseason. You get everyone's best effort. You get a lot of trickeration from coaches because you've saved a bunch of stuff. These guys have had all off season to develop some plays. So I'll do a little win-loss, but I also think, like, could Atlanta win week one? I mean, Atlanta, remember, week two last year beat the Eagles. I think the Eagles, if they played week whatever 15, are beating them 9.9 out of 10 times. Bengals at the Browns. This is a big year for Cincy, man. There's going to be obviously there's some weird stuff going on with Trey, the texting back and forth. Like I don't know if people thought like I was taking the Bengals side because I'm not necessarily taking the Bengals side in this staring contest with their star pass rusher. I just think we're always so quick to like you got to give everyone the money. And the complications, a couple people were like, Middlekauff, you're just so casual. The reason he didn't resign with the Saints wasn't because of injuries, it was because we didn't have any money. Regardless, my point is simple. When I sign you later, right? When I draft you like Myles Garrett or Max Crosby or Aiden Hutchinson or Nick Bosa, the equity I have behind you in my franchise, starting with the owner, is pretty powerful. You mean a lot to me. And anytime that you are a guy that I sign and you're good, and he was obviously fantastic, the relationship is just a little different. It just is. Listen, Peyton Manning's one of the greatest players of all time. I think we'd all agree his relationship with the Colts franchise while he was playing was a little different than just with the Broncos. By the end, Kubiak and John's like, I need to take a pay cut, and Kubiak's like, you're taking some 6 or 7 weeks off. I don't know if that's happening in Indy. So ultimately, my point is, if they had no one else to pay, I would be like, just pay them. Who else are you going to pay? They pay these two wide receivers. They're paying the quarterback. I understand it's more complicated than the way I'm sure it gets portrayed by some of these former players on TV. Like, would Howie Roseman or Bill Belichick in his prime, not this version, would those type guys, Les Snead, are they just giving this 31-year-old guy 3-4 years guaranteed right now? That's my only point. Like, is he a fantastic player? Would I want him on my team? Would I want to go to war with that guy? Of course. But anytime you're talking 30, 31-year-old pass rusher, who's not like your homegrown guy, like these are tougher conversations, fair or not. The Browns, who knows? They could be a major shit show, but they're another team. Like they got a weird week one. I'd want the Browns. The Bengals are in their division, so you play them multiple times. But if I was playing the Browns in a one-off game, I want them like week 8. Week 1, you get Myles Garrett amped up. Shit, all of a sudden you're like, oh my God. Did you know your credit card points and miles lose value while they collect dust? Imagine a credit card with rewards that can grow in value. Introducing the Gemini Credit Card. With the Gemini Credit Card, you can earn Bitcoin or one of over 50 other cryptos instantly with no annual fee. Every swipe at the store or gas pump earns you instant rewards deposited straight into your account. Plus, sign up now for $200 Bitcoin bonus to kickstart your rewards. Go to Gemini.com/card to learn more and start earning today. Terms apply. Again, visit Gemini.com/card now. Terms apply. The Gemini credit card is issued by WebBank. In order to qualify for the intro $200 crypto bonus, your application must be approved by June 30th, 2025, and spend $3,000 in your first 90 days. Terms apply. Some exclusions apply to instant rewards in which rewards are deposited when the transaction posts. This content is not investment advice, and trading crypto involves risk. For more details on rates, fees, and other Gemini credit card terms, see rates and fees. Dolphins at the Colts. This is one that's you're going to need some gambling or fantasy to really stay locked into that one. Indy better win that game, I'll tell you that. Another one, I'd say this one's a little more interesting than the last one, Panthers at the Jags. I am fascinated, like Bryce Young, #1 overall pick. Is he just a good player now? They draft McMillan high. They got Leggett coming back. They've invested in their offense. Like, I was someone, anyone that's listening to this podcast knows, I just thought he looked tiny. In a league, I don't care. Not everyone has to be Carson Palmer or Eli and Peyton, 6 foot, and Brady, 6'5", 6'6". You saw him, you're like, I don't think you can play in this league at that size. You watched him play down the stretch. He was fantastic. And everyone, know a couple people in Carolina, they love the guy. Obviously, I mean, a huge part of Bryce Young's package was he was an excellent player, but he was like, his character and all that stuff was an easy guy to root for. Same thing with Tua. Like, Tua's an easy guy to root for. The question is, like, is he good enough? Panthers at Jags. God, we'll slow. Raiders at the Patriots. Again, this is we're easing in these 10 a.m. kickoffs. You go from Eagles and the Chiefs and the Chargers to a lot of like Falcons, Panthers, Raiders. It's easing your way in. This is if the Patriots are good, you're winning this game. The other thing we realized this last year, people get mad at this, like Middlekauff, you just hate baseball. No, I just honestly believe there is not a game on Wednesday the 14th that matters at all. I don't think there's one game that matters at all because you have so many games to make it up. Same thing in the NBA. Like there is not a game in some random night in January that matters at all for the totality of the season. In football, because of the short sample size, it is important. And two, depending on how the conference plays out, we saw last year, why weren't the Bengals in the playoffs? You could make the argument because they lost week 1 to Gerard Mayo. So sometimes you lose early. It's like, that was kind of weird. By like week 10 or week 12, you're like, that's the worst loss of the season. So I think you got to be careful with that. Though I think like the Raiders and the Patriots are two teams, like last year, rough watch. This year, that could be a competitive game. And two teams that are going to have competitive high hopes, that's kind of a big one. Cardinals at the Saints. God, this 10 a.m. week 1 is like, you're really easing us in. This is, if you want to have a few cocktails the night before, order some breakfast, just kind of chill. This morning, football's football, but no one's getting this confused with like Alabama, Georgia every game. Cardinals, Saints. In theory, the Cardinals should be better, but I don't know. Every time we think that, they kind of come back to earth. There's another game that, like, in theory, could be awesome. The Steelers at the Jets. It's like, is Rodgers ever going to sign? Is he just do it whenever he's ready? Maybe like middle of summer, maybe after 4th of July, maybe like middle of training camp. I don't know. I guess he's on his own time. Giants at the Commanders. Like that. This is what I'm talking about. This type game. The Giants might not be that good, but division games, everyone's amped up. Dayball's given like, that was a speech pregame. And all of a sudden, it's like tie game in the third quarter, right? And then you look back when you win 11 games and the Eagles won 12, you're like, that game might have cost us the division. So you got to be careful week 1. Titans at the Broncos. Tough little opening spot for Cam Ward. Mile high. Oof, against that defense. Good luck, rookie. This is a solid game. Niners at Seattle. The afternoon games get a little better. Detroit at Green Bay, Houston at the Rams. It's a good way to wash our palate after the morning. Those are just potentially some playoff teams. Obviously, the Lions, Packers. That's a massive game. I would imagine Tom Brady's on that call. Rams, Houston. I don't know about Houston. I'm sure Romo's on that call. And this Sunday night game is just one thing we got pretty lucky. And this happened forever with Brady and Manning, because they basically won the division every single year, right? When Manning was with Indy, and then when he was with Denver, and obviously Tom. I think the only year that they lost the division is when he tore his ACL. So he was always going to win the division. So a first place schedule, the Patriots either played the Colts or the Broncos every single year in the regular season, and then a decent amount of times in the playoffs. That's kind of what we're getting right now with the trio of Patrick versus Josh and Lamar. And we're pretty lucky because more likely than not, there's going to be some combination of these people playing each other in the playoffs, whether that's Chiefs, Ravens, Bills, Ravens, Bills, Chiefs, however it plays out. Sometimes you get one of them plays the other one back-to-back weeks in the playoffs. But all these guys, they played each other last year in the regular season, right? Obviously, it was a huge win for the Bills beating the Chiefs, and it was a big win for the Ravens when they beat the Bills. And this year we get the same thing. And we get that Sunday night game is just fantastic. I mean, Chiefs, the place in Buffalo is just going to be rocking. But I do think it's pretty special when you just automatically get these games in the regular season. And sometimes you're guaranteed because the rotation of the division on the schedule. But as long as, the Chiefs have won the division every year Patrick has started, obviously the Bills have won the division, I think, 5 straight years. And, the Ravens have been rattling off some division wins for several years straight. So we're pretty lucky right now because these games, anytime there's some combination of these three teams playing each other, that should be an automatic. If you're CBS, you want Nance and Romo like that 4:25 Eastern slot. But if you are ESPN, if you are Sunday Night Football, if you're Amazon, I mean, that is a very, very desirable game. And then I do want to get into these two teams. This is a really good Monday Night Football game. It's the Vikings at the Bears. And we mentioned this the other day. Like, this is how I think the NFC North, there's no denying, there's just a stupid amount of talent. It is a pretty special division in terms of the amount of good players in the division. Everyone is in agreement there. I mentioned this earlier. The Detroit Lions, until they prove otherwise, I'm giving them kind of like, I'm not saying the Eagles or the Chiefs, like I expect them to be in the Super Bowl, but I'm basically giving them the treatment 11 to 14 wins, lock playoff team. They've proven that. Now, this year, they got some new pieces calling offense, calling defense. Could be a transitional period, but the head coach and the roster is back. They're going to be good. And I'm sorry, like I've been watching football for 30 plus years and the Packers have been good every single year. So I'm just going to assume now whether they win 10 games, whether they win 14 games, I don't know. But I think the Packers are going to be good. The Vikings, I would put right there. If you just told me like Sam Darnold was coming back, I'd be like, they're going to be a lock good team. But we've talked about this. Your first year, as a rookie quarterback and never started a regular season game, and then starting for a team with just a ton of talent and a ton of expectations is not easy. We have seen in recent memory guys get overwhelmed by it. We saw Trey Lance. And listen, I think J.J. McCarthy is much more pro-ready coming from Michigan. I'm not comparing him to Trey Lance in terms of a player. But in terms of the pressure, usually a young rookie guy does not get. Cam Ward has no pressure. If they win 5 games and he throws 28 touchdowns, even if they suck and he has some bad games, but he shows a bunch of signs, everyone will be cool with it. Everyone will be good with it. That is not the case with these two quarterbacks. We saw it last year with Caleb. The expectations, fair or not, and clearly with Eberflus, it was unfair, were pretty stupid. It was like, God damn. And then it overwhelmed him. Rightfully so. His coach and the guy calling the plays were a bunch of idiots. But you look at the Vikings, right? Starting at Chicago, that is just not. Hey, welcome to the big leagues, kid. You just look at the schedule. Listen, week 2, Atlanta, controlled environment. That's a pretty good start. Then you just go on this stretch: Cincinnati Bengals, Pittsburgh Steelers. In 2 of the games. Now, here's where I think JJ gets a little lucky. There are 2 games against at Pittsburgh and at Cleveland. Those are just tough places to play for a young quarterback. It's early in the season. It's loud. People are fired up. Both those games are international. So I think if I told Kevin Stefanski, like, you're going to play J.J. Watt and Myles Garrett back-to-back weeks, would you get the choice? Would you rather play them at Pittsburgh, at Cleveland, or would you rather just fly across the pond and play 2 international games, one in Dublin and one in the UK? He 1,000,000% would sign up for international games. So I've never been to an international game, but there is a huge difference than playing at Cleveland, whatever it's called, Memorial Stadium, and them hitting that sound of the side of the wall, and you can hear it echoing on television, or in Pittsburgh where it gets really loud and rocking, and the defense has a big advantage. But they just go on a stretch after the bye. Eagles, Chargers, Lions, Ravens, Bears, Packers, Seattle, who, again, I mean, is, even if they don't make the playoffs, is not going to be some bad team. Commanders, at the Cowboys. It's just tough. And part of it is just the conferences, or the divisions in which the rotations here. But I would say the same thing for Caleb. You get Monday Night Football at home. It's obviously an easier environment to play because you're not going on the road in Minnesota, which is one of the better home fields. But like we saw last year, if it gets weird, like people just, it's borderline unfair, the expectations on these 2 guys, but specifically Caleb. In fairness to JJ, it's like he was whatever, the 5th quarterback off the board. He's really going to be asked to play like much more of a game manager. The expectation for Caleb is to dominate. This is why everyone shits on Trevor Lawrence. It's like, guys, I was sold Andrew Luck or John Elway or Peyton Manning what am I watching? And I was telling someone today, I was like, you know, if you could choose of all the teams to not get drafted to in the NFL, that would be high on the list to go to Jacksonville, just based on what happens to careers there. So, is there a chance that he has been in a weird spot? Maybe it settles down a little bit more now with Steve Jobs, the GM, and Liam Cohen screaming Duval. I don't know, but uh, this team, you get Ben Johnson, you got a lot of talent, but I look at the schedule at the Lions, even like at the Raiders. Like Pete Carroll's a huge upgrade to what they've had at the Commanders, at the Ravens, at the Bengals, at obviously the Vikings, playing the Steelers, at the Eagles on Black Friday, at the Packers, playing the Browns, who, listen, I don't think are going to be good on offense, but the defense is good. At the 49ers versus the Lions. It's just the schedules for these two guys is just really, really difficult. I think one of these two guys is going to have a weird season. I don't know which one. I wouldn't feel confident betting either way because I think Ben Johnson's going to be a huge upgrade, and I just think Minnesota, they just have so much talent. But I don't think one thing we know is that all four teams in this division can't all win double-digit games. And just based on the math, one of these teams is winning under 500, and whoever does that, it's going to be pretty devastating. What else did I want to hit on? International games. It's pretty clear that the league is going to have an international package. I mean, Roger has talked about this, and that international package is basically going to be like starting week 2 or week 3 and go for 12, 13, 15 weeks. And they are going to sell that. And whether that's to an Amazon, to a Netflix, to a YouTube, I don't like that personally as someone that watches 10 hours, 12 hours of college football. Sometimes I go to bed late. It's kind of nice easing into the day and knowing there's not a game on till 10. Now, luckily, historically, some of these games, you don't exactly need to be locked in like the Super Bowl. But I actually think some of these games internationally are a little bit better this year. The Vikings at the Steelers and Vikings at the Browns. I mean, you just got to pay attention. Definitely the Vikings Steelers and the Vikings Browns. What if I told you that Shador starting one of those games? Definitely got to watch. Broncos at the Jets, Rams at the Jags, Falcons at the Colts, Commanders at the Dolphins. I think it's pretty clear where we're headed that we are going to get a full-on international package sooner than later. We know that the Eagles are playing Dallas week 1. Their next 4 games, like pretty tough, just start to the season for the Super Bowl champs. Then now, granted, you beat Dallas, 7-point favorite, probably will beat them, potentially handily. The Link's going to be rocking. You get a longer bye, though the Chiefs play the following night. They're traveling to Brazil, long trip home. You do play Kansas City at Kansas City for their home opener the following week. And I would imagine, a lot of the guys on the Chiefs are going to have some pride. That's a huge game for them, just given that they got the shit beat out of them in the Super Bowl. Then they play the Rams. Then they play at Tampa, who I think, if they don't have as many injuries as last year, Tampa could be a 12-win team. And then they play Denver, who gave the Chiefs everything they could handle in a game that if they don't get a field goal blocked, they would have beat Kansas City last year in the regular season, been one of the only teams beside Buffalo. I guess Kansas City threw the last game of the year, but that's just at Kansas City, Rams, at Tampa, Denver. It's just like, hey, Philly, there's no just kind of easing into the season. Now, luckily, the way that town works, the intensity of how serious, guys like Jalen are, they're definitely not going to, ease, just kind of sleepwalk into the season. But that is not just a nice little easy, a Giants game here, a Jags game here, maybe a Cardinal game here. It's like, no, you're playing the Chiefs, then you're playing the Rams, and then you're playing Tampa, then you're playing Denver. Just 4 playoff teams, buckle up. One team that we are just, whenever this actually happens, it'll be one of the biggest stories of the offseason is the Brock Purdy contract. And I get asked about it kind of casually by a lot of people all the time. Like, what do you think it's going to be? What do you think it's going to be? And it's like, honestly, I got no clue. Like, I think he's a good player. I have a hard time giving him an astronomical amount of money. But I also know if I was his agent and I was sitting in his shoes, in his corner, in his team, I'd go, You would? I watched them give Trevor Lawrence $200 million. I watched them give Jordan Love a massive contract off 8 good games. Tua Tagovailoa, who couldn't chew gum and walk straight in playoff games. they gave him 150, 160 million dollars guaranteed, and people are acting like I should only get 100 million dollars. Yeah, I'm not Josh Allen. I'm not Mahomes or Lamar or Joe Burrow, but I'm sure as hell, based on a resume, better than those cats. So it's complicated. Now, luckily, I think he values the situation as he should. A coach who not only loves him, an offense that's perfect for his skill set, and it's been a very positive marriage between those two guys. But I do think this contract is just a complicated situation. We'll have to see how it plays out. And clearly, because of that, they have made some transactions, the 49ers, I think that opened some eyes. It felt like they got rid of half their team, right? But when I look at their schedule, it's kind of a joke. And they're not as good as they have been in the past. So my expectations for them are not 12, 13 wins. I do believe, though, anything under 10 is a massive, massive disappointment and an indictment on Kyle and the quarterback because there's a lot of Saints, Jags, Falcons, Giants, Panthers, Browns, Titans, Colts, Bears at home. I mean, I don't see a lot of Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, and Burrow coming into Levi Stadium. I don't see Jalen Hurts or Jaden Daniels. I don't see the Lions on Monday Night Football. This is a schedule that I'm sorry. I get you got some new faces. It's the NFL. So do a lot of teams. If you have one of the highest paid coaches in the NFL, and he earned it over a 4 or 5 year stretch, taking the team to a couple Super Bowls, going to NFC championships, winning a bunch of games, random quarterbacks, and a quarterback that, like it or not, is going to be making a ton of money. You can't have like a 7, 8 win season with that schedule. It cannot happen. Like I do understand if like JJ McCarthy is just a little overwhelmed and you win 8, 9 games. I think Vikings fan would be like that. That would be really disappointing. But there is a path. It's like this guy's never started a regular season game, right? Like you could just see past a certain. If you tell me that like Cam Ward shows a lot of signs, but doesn't win a lot of games, very understandable. Like I don't want to hear it's like, well, we don't love our safety depth. Like you're playing the Colts and you're playing the Titans. You got to win that game if you're the 49ers. You just have to. And you can't, like the Packers, lose a bunch of divisional games like you did last year. You don't need to sweep the division, but if you're a good team, the thing in the NFL, you can have a 5 or 6 win season. Typically, I bet if we did a study over the last 10 years, teams that win 5 or 6 games, 30, 40%, so multiple of their wins typically come from divisional games. Because how often did we see, remember like Ron Rivera would beat the Eagles? You could play in a division with, I've seen the Raiders over the years take down Andy Reid and the Chiefs. You are just very, very comfortable against your divisional opponents, regardless who they are. Whether it's Lamar, whether it's Jalen Hurts and the Eagles, it doesn't matter who it is. You can beat that team, and typically, even if you're shitty, usually win a game like that. And I think the 49ers, I'm sorry, like my expectations for them are not to make it to the Super Bowl, not even to rattle off playoff wins. But if you can't win 10 games, I do believe it would be a major, major disappointment. The other team that, and listen, I've been high on this team because, like, I think the Raiders and the Patriots had two guys that were just completely over their head, right? In fairness to I can't even think of his name. I'm drawing a complete blank. The what was Antonio Pierce. It was a bizarre situation. It wasn't his fault. McDaniels gets fired. He's on the staff, interim, and it was just kind of a perfect storm. But like, should he have gone from linebacker coach to head coach that quickly, completely over his head? It was crazy, and the team was pretty big embarrassment. I would say an even bigger embarrassment. I don't. Mark Davis was in a weird spot. Antonio Pierce, the players really liked him, and then it was kind of crazy because when they really liked him, by the time the season got there, it felt like Devontae and Crosby had kind of turned on him. But the Mayo thing, Kraft had gone on record like this guy was, uh, the coach in waiting in my mind forever, and it was clear like this is not going to work. And clearly the press conferences, it was a disaster. So you get Pete Carroll, who is, I don't know, one of the best better coaches, college or pro, over the last 30 plus years. And you get Mike Vrabel, who we can argue all day long, like, how good is he? Where does he fall? Here's what I know. He is a massive upgrade. And what I think the problem for the Raiders is because I think Spytek's going to be a good GM. We know Pete Carroll is a solid head coach. They just play in a division with, I don't know, the best team in the AFC, and then two other playoff teams. So it's just going to be really, really difficult. But when I look at the Patriots, I go, I think their schedule is actually kind of easy because their division, like at the Dolphins week 2, I don't even give a shit. It's hot. I like the Patriots in that game. Week 1 in Vegas, like that's not, or I mean, at home against Vegas, not as easy as it would have been in years past, but like that's a very, very winnable game. The Pittsburgh Steelers week 3, get them at home. Like, who's their quarterback? Is Aaron Rodgers playing quarterback? What does he look like? Has he done anything for the last 6 months? Is he just going to show up in training camp at 41 years old and be good? We saw last year with all the hype and all the offseason, it still didn't go well. The Panthers, the Saints, the Titans, the Browns, the Falcons, the Jets again, the Giants. They got some tough games. Obviously, play the Bills twice. They got the Ravens on here. They got the Bengals. But there's a lot of Dolphins and Jets and Giants. Like, I don't think it's inconceivable. A lot like Denver and the Chargers last year. Both those teams benefited from an easier schedule. And what did they get? They had real coaches. They had real coaches. Now, Jim Harbaugh took over a guy who could play quarterback. We can argue all day long about like how good Herbert is, where he ranks, who he should rank over. He's a real NFL quarterback that you can go to the playoffs with. We know that for a fact. Where he ranks, like, we're all going to have different opinions. Bo Nix, no one had any clue. And let's face it, most people just like, wait, Bo Nix going to be any good in the NFL? Like, Drake May's already played in the NFL. So now he gets Josh McDaniels, awful head coach. I mean, Josh McDaniels, he's your head coach. If you're a player, call your agent and say, get me out of here. Get me traded before he ruins my career, or this place is so miserable it's going to make me want to quit football, right? But with Josh McDaniels an offensive coordinator, I mean, let's face it. Bill Belichick's coaching career fell apart, crumbled when Josh took the Raiders job. The year before, Josh had Mac Jones and a team that didn't have much talent on offense in the playoffs. Now, granted, they got smoked, but there was a big difference between being that playoff team and what they look like post-Josh with Patricia and Judge. Like, I think the one thing, if you're a North Carolina fan, it's like, listen, I'm a little Jordan Hudson out. Like, I just can't care enough about how many properties she owns, if she's taken over the will, is she allowed in the facility. Like, that story has kind of jumped the shark for me. Like, we've gone far enough. He's old, he's rich, he's banging some 25-year-old. We've seen this song and dance before, and we'll see it again. You know, unless she's like cutting players on the team or telling him what plays to run. I think we've crossed the point of like, okay, let's just see him play some games. But who's Belichick's offensive coordinator? Who is Belichick's offensive coordinator? Because that's a pretty big freaking deal. Here's the other thing about Vrabel. When Vrabel first got to Tennessee, I went to my boy's bachelor party. I knew John Robinson, the GM, so I was like, you know what? I'll make a trip out of it. I went to practice. It was cool. It was sweet. I remember standing there by Derrick Henry. I'm like, this motherfucker is huge. He is massive. And at that time, he hadn't really broken out. I think this was 2018. And then from then, his career went like this. You know who Vrabel's first offensive coordinator was? Matt LaFleur. You know who his next offensive coordinator was? Arthur Smith. This guy has a pretty good feel. Now, even if this Josh McDaniels thing was at the Crafts, no one can argue Josh McDaniels is good in that role. It's why we see, like, Ben Johnson is an elite offensive coordinator. Great at calling play. How will he be a head coach? I don't know. There's a big difference. Like, Kevin O'Connell clearly knows how to call plays, and he knows how to be a head coach. Like, that's impressive. Because a lot of guys get overwhelmed. It's like, I'm just a play caller. I got the sheet. It's like I'm reading, the menu at Applebee's. It's like, no, you got to run the whole team. Your defensive linemen's having a meltdown over there. You got to calm them down. One of your position coaches is losing his mind. You got to go talk to him. Your special teams coach wants to run a fake. You need to tell him, no, scrap that. You got a timeout. Every 20 million people are watching you because it's Thursday night football and you just blew a timeout. It's hard. There's a lot going on. I'm guilty as anybody. I can talk shit with the best of them from my couch about coaches. It's an elite trait I have. But I also acknowledge like it's not easy as the head coach managing everything. When I worked in Philly, Andy Reid got destroyed for time management. Part of it is like it helps to have a quarterback who also kind of can look at the clock and knows the times to not get you in these compromising positions. But when you're first becoming a head coach, that stuff's really overwhelming. I'm rooting for Ben Johnson because I loved watching the Lions on offense. How he's going to handle that, I don't know. Only time will tell. I know Vrabel can handle, like, especially the little details. Like, he's pretty good at that. So I do believe that the New England Patriots are I would put them as like the Denver Broncos of 2025. They benefit from a shitty schedule. They get a real coach. While they have a young quarterback, uh, the coach is going to try to manage him. Like, Sean Payton didn't ask Bo Nix to be Drew Brees in his prime. That's not what he was asking. He's like, bro, just play under control. And as the season went, he let him make a few plays, but it was like defense, playing smart, being tough, being physical. And I do believe that that's what Vrabel's going to bring to the Patriots. Okay, over the next I'm going to go on with Colin tomorrow. The schedule thing's hard because the schedule breaks. Like, where do you even start? So we'll just keep talking about some of the big games. It's fun. I think sometimes when you do the win-loss stuff, especially if you're like a team in the middle and you go, we're playing Lamar Jackson or Patrick Mahomes or whoever, Jalen Hurts. One thing we have seen over the years is like guys miss some games. So there's a big difference of like, yeah, we're playing the Eagles. We got Kenny Pickett or Marcus Mariota. Who is their backup? DTR or Tanner McKee. Like Jalen's missed some games, right? Some guys, Jaden Daniels missed a game last year. Didn't Mark Mariota start a game? Didn't he hurt a rib or something? Remember that? So you just sometimes, and we're all guilty of this, that's what makes football really difficult. We know that teams go from really crappy to really good. We saw the stat recently that one team over the last 5 years that's drafted in the top five has made the playoffs. And my choice for that this year will be the New England Patriots. 7 seed, 9-10 wins. But I think you got to be careful about going, we got no chance to win this game because that's not the way it works. And I think clearly the other thing is like when you have a shitty team in your division, you can't always just chalk up that random game in November. And I think sometimes what gets scary is like if you're playing a late season Thursday night football game or Monday night football game against a team that might not be as good, that is that team's playoff game. That is that team's Super Bowl. And we have seen teams over the years, feels like recently, like the Giants have been in a couple of those. You got to be careful because that's in a weird way, it's a much bigger game for that team because none of their other games for the last several weeks have mattered, and none of the games moving forward will matter, but they know that everyone's watching that game be played. And I've always defended good teams. If you're like, it's like, how did the Eagles or how did the Chiefs or how did the Lions lose that game? I don't know. They're human beings. And for 7 days sitting in meetings and at home watching film, talking about the team with their coaches, you can't pretend like, guys, this team sucks. And I remember Belichick used to go on these long, diatribes about like, this is the greatest special teams unit we've ever seen. It's like, Bill, this team is 1-13. They have averaged 110 yards of offense for the last 6 weeks. They've scored 3 total touchdowns, and they have the worst passing defense in league history. You can pretend all you want up there, and you can be a dick to your players, but they have hearts and they have brains and they can see straight and they know this team sucks. So I do understand for some weird losses late in the season, but that's a long way to go. So let's just focus on the present. Appreciate everyone coming. And yeah, football still a little far away, but at least we get tonight to celebrate.